Olá, eu sou o Vinícius Langoni, da Azequest, e estou aqui com o Giovanni Enrico. Ele é o Head Global de Equities do Grupo Azimut e é o responsável pela gestão do fundo Azimut Allocation Trend. Eu vou conversar com o Giovanni em inglês, e a gente vai falar aqui hoje sobre o que o Giovanni faz, como ele faz o produto Allocation Trend e quais são os views que ele tem nesse momento de alocação. So, good morning, Giovanni. How are you?
Good morning to you. I'm very excited. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. We are excited as well. We are bringing some of the best Azimut funds to Brazil, and Allocation Trend was one of our choices. So we will start. I would like to ask you, Giovanni, how long you've been with the group Azimut, what is your current role, and who are the people that help you? Tell us about your team a bit.
Yeah, of course. So actually, I've been hired by Azimut a year and a half ago with two main purposes. The first one is I'm heading the equity global team of Azimut Group, and I'm currently the CEO of Azimut Investment Limited, that is the Irish investment management company that we opened. I've been doing this job for more than 25 years. I was previously the CIO of another wealth manager, and now I'm delighted to be working here and heading this fantastic team. We are based, as you know, in 18 different countries, and like Brazil, we manage the fund directly, normally in the country where we are, and this gives us an incredible edge compared to the other companies, in the sense that we have straight information from every country on a daily basis on what's going on in every part of the world, from China to Mexico to US to Brazil and Europe. So it's a unique opportunity to be managing funds in this way.
Great. So I understand that the Allocation Trend is a very flexible mandate. For the Brazilian investors, this is new. So I would like you to explain, Giovanni, what are the main features of the fund? So by the name of Allocation Trend, when Brazilian investors put their money into this fund, what can they expect? So if you could please explain us a bit on the mandate of the fund, the main features, so how long, how short, what is a typical net exposure if you explore equities, bonds. So please elaborate on that.
Yeah, of course. So let me start with saying that we obviously leverage the knowledge of the entire company. So we use every information we can gather from every country in which we work in. The fund is a flexible fund, so it has the possibility to be overly invested or underinvested. Normally the range moves between 75 and 110%. So we have the possibility to be very aggressive or very defensive relative to the condition of the market. How we build the portfolio. The portfolio has a core structure of stocks that we select on a fundamental basis. We normally tend to invest in quality stock that have a very good prospect in terms of growth. We keep a lot of attention to the free cash flow yield generation and the fundamental valuation of the stock within the portfolio. We invest in developed market and partially also in emerging market. We normally have a geographic exposure that is also driven by the stock picking that we generate, but we have a particular attention even to the macroeconomic environment. So ideally, when we build up the portfolio, we start from the bottom, so deciding which stocks are the most suitable for the portfolio, and then we analyze in which part of the macroeconomic cycle we are in, so we adjust accordingly to that. We can use pretty much every financial instrument that is at disposal in the market. So we can invest in equity, fixed income, derivatives, and we use derivatives for active bet or for hedging eventually position that we have in the funds. So it has a great flexibility that has given the fund the possibility to behave well in different market conditions.
When you invest, Giovanni, how do you do that? What is the process? So who comes up with ideas, which teams, who selects the ideas? Do they come first from a bottom-up approach or a top-down approach? How do you blend those two things? I mean, how do you mix your view on specific companies? If it's a growth theme, if it's a value theme, how do you put that together with a geographic view or macroeconomic view, and how exactly you come up with the final portfolio?
Perfect. So we normally start, we have a lot of meetings with all the analysts around the world that covers the different part of the world and the different sector of the world. Once we come up with a certain number of positions that we consider very stable in terms of earning growth and of potential of growth in their business plan for the next 2 or 3 years. Once we have analyzed also the ESG part of their business, that for us is very, very interesting and important in our investment process. So environment, social, and governance are 3 pillars of our backbone in the investment process. Then once we come up with a portfolio that normally has I'd say a defined number of stock that can range between 75 to 180. It depends on the market condition. We try to see, analyzing the risk, the volatility of the market, and the intrinsic risk of the portfolio, to create a portfolio that can withstand the current market condition. So from the bottom-up analysis, then we adjust the weight relative to the exposure that we want to have to the different countries in which we are investing in. And obviously, the ESG is becoming more and more an important part of our choices on the stock and our investment.
I understand by reading the material, and this is very important for the Brazilians, this ESG aspect is something that Brazilians are more and more looking at. So I know that you exclude some sectors that are not ESG friendly. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we don't invest in weapon of mass destruction. We don't invest in tobacco. We don't invest in anything that is related to pornography or sector that are not compliant with the United Nations regulation, basically. And on top of that, we then delve into a very strict analysis of how the company behave in the environmental part, the social, and the governance. Obviously, it changed in relation to the sector. So a sector like the energy will have a higher focus on the environmental part. A sector like the financial, for example, or the technology will have a higher focus on the social part, the governance, the labor condition of the company we invest in. So it is a very important structure that still has an important part attached. We are after the performance of the stock. So we want to merge the virtuous companies that we find in the investable market with an important return on the performance of the stock.
Great. Giovanni, thanks for all the explanation. For this last part of the meeting, I would like to know, as we are today in the end of the first semester of 2023. I would like you to tell us a bit about your current positions, how the fund is positioned for the coming market, what are your views, where do you expect to have gains in the fund? So please.
So at the moment, and these follow also the recommendation that we share with Azimut Group, we have a preference for the European equities, Mexican equities, Brazilian equities, and Japan. We recently upgraded Brazil after the election and after the positive news that we are receiving on a daily basis from the companies that are based in your country. We have at the moment a neutral positioning on US, mainly because of the valuation of the share itself. And we see an interesting opportunity in Japan and Mexico and Brazil, as I was mentioning, mainly for the great improvement that they had in the earning numbers of the last quarter and continuing during the course of the year. And the fact that these countries are probably the one that will produce the highest level of growth in the next coming years. Obviously, as I was mentioning before, we try to be nimble on managing the fund. So we are carefully looking at US to see if there will be any opportunity during the course of the year to be invested more than we are now in that country.
Are you bullish on equities in general?
So in general, I'm quite positive. We are literally monitoring very carefully some events. Probably the main attention point that we have at the moment is the geopolitical situation. We have, as you can imagine, a big attention for the conflict that is very close to us in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. We are trying to monitor the evolution of the situation between China and United States on the tariff issue and the trade between the two countries. That being said, we are optimistic on the fact that once this overhang will be dissipated by the market, the potential for an improvement in the economy is not that far. Still, this year it can be a very volatile one, as you can imagine, with all these question marks that we still have. There are still some concern that a potential recession could happen around the world, and the fact that the interest rate is on the rise in Europe, in US, and everywhere developed markets are, is another part that we are watching very carefully. So far, we haven't noticed any particular deterioration in the macroeconomic data. Labor force is healthy everywhere, unemployment is very low, and so far even the consumption around the world has been pretty stable. So these are obviously signals that give us more confidence on the market.
Great. We know that the fund is very flexible. As you said, you can have a net long exposure that ranges typically from 75% to 110%. So my final question, where are you right now in terms of net exposure? And is there any short or underweight that you would like to talk about?
So at the moment we are and we have been for the course of the year fully invested. We have at the moment a preference for the healthcare sector around the world. We have a preference for the financial sector in Europe, where we are also overweight on the luxury side, and we are positive also on the utility sector that has provided a good performance so far, and we think the valuation are still interesting on that part.
Great, Giovanni. A pleasure to have you here speaking to Brazilians, and I hope this will be the first of a series of interviews going forward. This will be very important to bring the Brazilians this confidence, this direct contact with the manager. Of course, here in Brazil at AZQuest, we will be your bridge. We will be the point of fusion between the Brazilians and the managers. So thank you again for being with us.
It's
Have
been
a
a
nice
pleasure,
day.
Vinicius, to be with you. Looking
Thank,
forward to have other meetings.
thank you. Obrigado a todos. Até mais.